Hello, good morning. Going to continue our exploration of SAW Opus 35 studies. We left off at study number 10. Well, we finished with study number 9 and going to go to study number 10 now. This one is in F major. And one of the great things about these pieces, they're progressive. So that's really nice because you get this kind of feeling of progressing as you play through the studies. But each study, I think, is a really nice piece of music. It's really well crafted. Fernando Saw was a fantastically trained composer. He wrote piano sonatas, he wrote symphonies, he wrote opera. So, really well-rounded composer. So we're very fortunate to have such a great collection of studies by such a wonderful composer. So they're really worth studying from a musical perspective. You see things like, wonderful harmonic progressions, chord progressions. You see great counterpoint. You see beautiful melodies, beautiful phrases. You see, what else do you see? Form. You see a great use of form and structure. So all of these things combine together into these really lovely studies. It's beautiful. So number 10 is in F major. And number 10 is in F major. F major is a tricky key because you don't get as many, that second string's gone, right? The B flat. So, but it's kind of a mellow key. I think you'll hear the key of F major has this kind of mellow feel. And a lot of this is in the first position. It's based in the first position, but it's getting a little bit busier. It's a bit more barring. We've got 16th note or semi-quaver motion consistently through the piece. So, we're getting to study number 10. These are often published in 2 books as well. They used to be, you'd have book 1, studies 1 to 12, and book 2, studies 13 to 24. But this is all in the one book here, published recently by Paul Brooks Horn. There is a tablature version available as well. Just want to give a shout out to Paul for the great work there he's done. And having the tablature version can really, if your sight reading ability is a little bit below your playing ability, then the tablatures can help you to sort of facilitate your playing. So anyway, let's get into these studies. Here's number 10. Go short and sweet, that one. Well, bit of a workout for the left hand. So as I said, F major is a bit more barring in it. That's probably one of the things to focus on in this study. I'm just going to invite people right now. I didn't post this in the Creative Classical Guitarist, so I'm going to post this right now. Let me know if you have any questions too while I'm doing this. So I think one of the keys to that study, one of the things it's focusing on is probably the left hand and barring and just increasing the range of motion, the activity for the hand, except for shifting. It's not really shifting a lot, but there's a lot of barring and a bit of stretching, and so that definitely is a challenge. And then I think it almost reminds me a bit of like Bach. It's got this kind of very, very contrapuntal, melodies are coming in at different voices at different times, and I think knowing where the melody is and how to bring it out, I think, is also a really great aspect of this study. So let me know if you have any questions. Let me know where you're watching from. Have you played Saw's studies before? I think they're really wonderful. Whatever style of guitar, even if you're a fingerstyle guitarist, or they're just such great foundational studies for the guitar. Let me know if you have any questions. Saw's studies, Opus 35. Okay, just inviting members of the Creative Classical Guitarist, and we learn about things on the Creative Classical Guitarist, all the things that we see in this study, like the harmonies. We're starting with the we went from an F chord to a C7 back to F again, and actually seeing chords. So the music is arpeggiated like that, but seeing the chords behind the arpeggios can really help, because then you start to chunk the notes together. You chunk them, in the way you see the music visually, but you also chunk the notes with your left hand fingers. So, like, for example, the first 5 notes, I can actually just hold down a chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the first 5 notes are all built from one chord. And the same goes for a lot of the piece. So a lot of the time we're holding down a chord and then arpeggiating it. So if you see the chords, it's a very, very big shortcut in learning a piece and in sight reading and in understanding music. And so let's move on, because I could talk a lot about just that one study. One more thing I want to mention is that it does change to the dominant in the B section. There's something we're talking about on the Creative Classical Guitarist, in case anyone from CCG is watching right now. We're talking about modulation. And so this piece starts in the key of F in the A section. And then when we get to the B section, we go to the key of C major there. So that's an example of a piece going to the dominant. So both sections are in major. You don't see a change of key signature because the dominant is very close in key to the original key. So, and then we go back to the key of F. So we've got a ternary form A, B, A. The A section's in F, the B section's in C major, the dominant, and then we return to F major again. So study number 11. This one also has a B flat in the key signature, but it's in the relative minor, it's in D minor. And you can see that quickly if you scan through the music. You'll see a C sharp going throughout most of the piece. Where you don't see a C sharp is probably changing key. So the C sharp is the leading tone. If you play a D minor scale, you get the C sharp. That's the leading tone. It's like a harmonic minor scale. All right. So this one, you'll see also number 11. If you have the music, it's basically a chord study. Just the whole piece is pretty much just playing block chords and playing a lot of them with a staccato, with a short articulation. So here is study number 11. That is a beautiful study. Very beautiful progressions there. So we get, at the beginning, we get these, pretty standard chords in D minor, but pretty soon he starts to go this chromatic bass line. It's beautiful. Actually, chromatic in the bass and the middle voice. That sort of thing. And then we get these little sequences. Oops, what's this chord? Bit of a change to the key of C. Or to the key of F, actually. C is the gateway chord. For those of you on CCG, gateway chord, the dominant to our relative major. We go to the key F. To the key of G minor through the dominant of G minor, which is D, G minor. Eventually we'll make our way back to A, the dominant of D minor. So beautiful harmonic progression, number 11. Very, very good to study the harmonic progression, the chords of that one. Next study, number 12. We're halfway through. It's taking way longer than I thought because I keep wanting to talk about these studies a lot. This one is interesting because, as you see, I'm tuning the 6th string to F, which is what it says to do. So once again, the key of F major, we had number 10 in F major, number 11 in D minor, number 12 in F major now with the low F, the low E tuned up to F. Okay, this one is definitely a study of intervals, especially the interval of a 6th. So we have these. It's a beautiful sonority that low F produces. So here it is. That is a gorgeous study. That is a really beautiful study. So yeah, the challenge with intervals like that when you're moving is to maintain a smooth legato, articulation through those melodies, especially when you have shifts like it's like left hand just going all over the place here. So to maintain a smooth line through all that is quite a challenge. That's an absolutely beautiful study there in the key of F major with the 6th string tuned up to F. For those watching on CCG, it might be a nice thing to try for a composition, just to put that 6th string up to F and see what happens. All right, let's go on to the next one. So we're in like book 2 now, which is study number 13, or studies 13 to 24. So there are 12 studies now, the second set of 12. I think the level, he ups the ante a little bit more, as we would expect. They are progressive. So number 13 is a very well-known one. I think it's in the Segovia, 20 studies, 20 SAW studies by Segovia that he published. Now this one is certainly a focus on bringing out a melody with a active arpeggio, something that's sort of like an Alberti bass. This kind of Alberti bass-like accompaniment with a melody. So bringing out the melody and cantabile style. This is another thing we talked about recently on the creative classical guitarist, rubato, and creating a singing style in your playing. And one way to do that, one easy way to, well, not easy, but a framework that can work very well for most melodies is to start the melody slow, ease into it, accelerate towards the middle of the melody, towards the middle of the phrase, and then start to pull back a little bit at the end of the phrase. So that's what I'm going to aim to do in this study. 13. Beautiful study. That's a really important one to transition from playing it with a lot of beats, like we really want to transform that, turn that into develop the cantabile, the singing style, bringing out the melody. First of all, that's quite a challenge, because the accompaniment is very busy, and so you really have to work on the A finger or the M finger, whatever's bringing out the melody. But then also letting the accompaniment be light and actually driven by or guided by the melody. So the movement of the melody, that's what can guide the arpeggios. All right, next study is number 14. And this one's in A minor. Interesting, in the time signature, it's got a cut common time. So it's written in 4/4 time. Cut common means that we should be trying to feel 2 beats per bar instead of 4 beats per bar, essentially. It's like 2/2, meaning 2 minims or 2 half notes per bar instead of 4/4, which is 4 crotchets or 4 quarter notes per bar. So I think this one is a bit more rhythmic. There are a lot of dotted rhythms in this, so that's probably one of the focus points for this study. Here we go. right, beautiful study there again. Quite a bit of counterpoint, especially in the B section, where we get this kind of great passage there. Interesting structure overall. We have the A section, which is repeated, ends in the key of C major, and then the B section continues in the key of C major, and then eventually we end in the key of A minor again. There's a very significant chord in measure 24, where we have from 23, yeah, and now 24. That's called a Neapolitan sixth chord, which is otherwise known as a flat 2-6. So it's, you take your second note of the scale, you flatten it, and put a major chord on there. So that's, if we're in the key of A minor, the second note's B. Right, so here's A minor, the second note's B. We flatten it, and we put a major chord. It's usually in first inversion, so B flat major, we put the D. And that's what we get, B flat major with the D in the bass. And that usually likes to go to the dominant. In this case, it goes to something called a cadential 6/4, which is basically a very common progression that happens at the end of a phrase or end of a piece. These are the things that we learn on the Creative Classical Guitarist. So Fernando Saw uses these things: Bach, Tadega, Barrios, Mertz, Tedesco, Albéniz. All the great composers use these similar structures, similar forms, similar types of counterpoint, similar intervals, similar chord progressions, similar melodic structures, similar textures. Okay, number 15 is maybe the last one I'll have time for today. This is taking way more sessions than I thought it would, but I hope you're enjoying listening to these studies and just seeing how much there is to learn from each one. And I'll say again, they progress, so it's a really nice feeling to play through. I mean, if you're a more advanced player, it's a great warm-up. You start a little easier, and then the pieces get more and more advanced. If you're a beginner intermediate guitarist, it can be a great supplement for your development too. So here's number 15. So this one is in the key of A major, and we see lots of moving intervals. So we're going to get thirds, this kind of thing, and then later on sixths. So we have primarily thirds and sixths. So it helps to know your scales in thirds and sixths. If you have practiced those before, they would be something like, in A major, that'd be the scale in thirds, and then the scale in sixths. You could do your scales in octaves. And tenths. What do I got to? There's a famous video of the great violinist Itzhak Perlman playing for Jascha Heifetz, two great violinists. So Itzhak Perlman, I think, was a bit younger in his career before he really took off. And he's playing for Jascha Heifetz, and Heifetz is sitting there sternly and saying, he's got like a stick or baton, and G sharp minor in thirds, 2 octaves, A flat major in sixths, 2 octaves. Imagine how you'd feel if you were playing for someone, playing in a master class, and the teacher asked you to play E major in thirds, 2 octaves, play G sharp melodic minor, 3 octaves. It's like, oh my goodness. I think the expectation today of, like, let me put it this way: the expectation back then and earlier, especially like in the 19th century, in the 1800s, I think the expectation of the knowledge of harmony was very, very high, because I've been looking through these method books, and they have just crazy amounts of progressions, scales in third, six octaves, tenths, all sorts of things. It's just volumes and volumes. It's like a sea of all of these things. The role of the octave in every key, which is a pretty advanced chord progression. The primary chords, the 1, 4, 5 chords in every key, chord progressions in every key, dominant and tonic in every key, movable things. I've found these types of things where you do like progressions like that, 5, 1, 5, 1. Just astounding. Anyway, so this piece focuses on thirds, so it's really fun. It's a great challenge, and now we're really going up to the higher positions of the fretboard. So I'll end on number 15. All right, okay. Quite challenging there to navigate around the fretboard and get the fingerings right, patterns right, even if you know your scales. I know the scales, but because of the, it's a piece, it's a composition, it's going up and down a bit more randomly than a scale, so it really tests out your knowledge of the intervals of the fretboard. And then again, that challenge, like we saw earlier, when you've got intervals moving in parallel motion, it can really make legato very challenging, and it can make shifts very challenging when you have things like what's that bit, that sort of thing, right? And you've got the rhythm to also navigate. So anyway, very fun study. So we're up to, for next time, 16. So we've got, what's that, 16 to 25 is 9 more studies, right? 9 more studies to go. So we'll cover those next time, and they just keep on advancing. And some of these are very, very well-known studies. Actually, the next one is a pretty well-known one, number 16. So look forward to Thomas. I am sight reading some of these. Some of them I know, and some of them I'm sight reading. That one I know a little bit. But the earlier ones, like 10, 11, 12, I hadn't really played much before. 10, 11, 12, but 13 I know really well, this one. And then 14, I know that, 14, 13, 14. I probably know these ones, the more advanced ones, a bit more than the earlier ones, especially the middle ones. The early ones I use in teaching quite a bit, and then the late ones I play myself. So there's these ones in the middle that I'm not so familiar with. The one that has the 6th string up in F was pleasantly surprising. Like, that's an absolutely beautiful piece. So, and I'll emphasize again, if you do want to improve your sight reading, that seeing the chords is one of the biggest helps that I've found. Seeing chord shapes. So I kind of described that earlier with the number 10, with the first one that I played, how it's all arpeggiated, the piece, but if you can see the chords, you've got like one chord for every 4 or 5, sometimes more, sometimes 8 notes. It's just one chord. So if you can see the chords, you're starting to read much fewer things. It's very, very similar to reading language, where you get to a point where you're not reading the individual letters anymore. You just see the word. And that's the level you want to get to with sight reading, is when you can start to see how those individual notes combine into chords, which are essentially words. And then there's other things too, like chord progressions, like 2-5-1, 4-5-1, cadential 6-4, Neapolitan sixth, going to a dominant, going to a tonic. Like you start to just pick up. You get expectations, just like in language. You can expect what notes are going to come next, what notes or what chords are going to come next. And then you can expect things like, what's the form? Like we've got an A section, probably expect that A section to come back, or part of that A section to come back. I probably expect the rhythm to repeat. So, really thoroughly studying the music, trying to comprehend the music is really, it's like comprehension. Isn't that a subject, right? When we study back in school, we call it comprehension. It's like we want to try and apply comprehension to the music, so we make sense of it to the best of our ability. And what you'll also find too is that composers are often doing similar things to each other. So what you learn from one piece, you will see in many other pieces. And that also helps you in sight reading, because then you see similar chord shapes across pieces, you see similar structures, similar form, similar progressions. So, yeah. So it's a good resource for sight reading. There are plenty of other resources. On the Creative Classical Guitarist, I share about every 2 or 3 days. I'll share a little sight reading clip, sight reading example that you can read through. And they're from various sources. Some are from Segreris, and they're much more of a lower level. And then sometimes we have some more advanced things like transcriptions of classical pieces and just fragments, like 4 or 8 measures. Excuse me. I'll usually write down what you can focus on. Is it positions? Is it rhythm? Is it chunking the chords, seeing the chords? So just try and make sight reading a regular part of your practice too. That's a really important, that's a really important thing as well. Just like when you're reading a language, when you're learning a language, sometimes you just have to sit there and just like go through the trial of, go through the growth of just sounding out the words, and music is a very similar thing. So anyway, hope you enjoyed that. Look forward to next time. These are great studies to play through. You get a lot of inspiration, a lot of food for thought when you play these studies. So Opus 35. Don't forget the book you can get on Amazon. This is Paul Brooks Horn, who published these recently. You can get these books on Amazon. You can also get them directly from his website as a PDF. And I highly encourage you to play these and to study them and enjoy. So see you next time.